My name is Dawn Gibson. I'm on the steering committee and the coordinating committee for the Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition. We are hosting this event. We are going to start off with the rally here, and then several of us will begin the walk shortly after. But before we begin, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Father Roy Bourgeois.
Once again, we gather at this site where we've been gathered now for many years. I want to begin by saying whenever there's an injustice in our world, silence is complicity. So once again, we are here to speak for sisters and brothers who cannot be here today. They're from Guatemala, El Salvador, Argentina, Chile, throughout Latin America, throughout the Americas, who have been made to suffer and who have been killed, tortured, and disappeared by graduates of this school down the road. We are here because this suffering and death caused by so many of these graduates to their people in Latin America. This was done in our name and with our tax money. We're also here to speak for so many of our sisters and brothers in Yemen, Pakistan, and other countries where these drones are being used. Killing by remote control, they call it. Like in Vietnam, many were in Vietnam when we dropped the bombs there. Those bombs did not differentiate between militants, the so-called enemy, and civilians. And whenever they drop these drones, they kill indiscriminately. And many of those killed are mothers and fathers and their children and their grandchildren. There's a whole new generation of drones that are being developed. And it's being all planned, coordinated, researched by Georgia Tech and Fort Benning. And so we gather to really focus in on those two issues. We begin our march this morning, a 7-day walk to Atlanta. It's going to be hot. We're going to get tired. But this experience that we're going to have over the next 7 days is so minuscule, really, to what so many people throughout the Americas, throughout the Middle East and other countries have endured and suffered for decades, for centuries. And so much of that suffering and death has been caused by our country and by this school. We still know it as the School of Assassins. They call it now WINSEC. New name, but the same shame. And so once again, we are here to poke the beehive, to let our voices be heard. And really, in closing, what we are about here, it's all about solidaridad. Once again, we come in a very humble way to let our sisters and brothers throughout the Americas, places like Yemen, Pakistan, other countries, that we are with them in their struggle for peace and justice, for equality. We want to express during our 7 days, during our walk, our love, support, and solidarity with others. And we know, like any action, there will be good to come from this. We will meet many along the way. And hopefully others will hear about this. And hopefully they too will begin to break their silence. And so for us, it's just an honor to be here once again, to connect our lives, our solidarity with our sisters and brothers of these other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words, Father Roy. Next, our next speaker is Maria Louisa. She is the field organizer for the School of the Americas Watch. Maria?
Thank you. Good afternoon. And as Father Roy said, it is an honor to be here at the gates of Fort Benning once again. And I come with a very humble message. And today's the anniversary of a martyr in the Americas from Guatemala, April 26th. Monsignor Gerardi. He is a greatly missed martyr. He was a Catholic bishop and human rights defender who worked on Guatemalan human rights and with the indigenous population. He spearheaded the Ad Hoc Truth Commission to investigate the human rights violations that occurred during the 36-year internal armed conflict. 2 days after the publication of the report, Guatemala Nunca Más, he was bludgeoned to death just 2 days after by Colonel Byron Lima Estrada, an SOA grad. An SOA grad trained here behind us. And he was a senior officer during the Scorched Earth campaigns, during the genocide, during the massacres, at the height of the internal armed conflict. He was the head of the Feared Army Intelligence Unit. And we are here to remember the life and the work of Monsignor Gerardi. In bringing about this Truth Commission report, he, along with so many other brave brothers and sisters in Guatemala, shed light on the silence and fear that for over almost 40 years marked this tiny country. And though it was the Guatemalan army, the United States was absolutely complicit, and many of the officers that were trained here. And why was he murdered? Well, in his words, I'll just share a few words on the day of the report when it was published. To open ourselves to the truth, face our personal and collective reality is not an option we can take or leave. It is an unavoidable obligation for every human being, for every society aspiring to become more humane and to be free. It confronts us with our most radical circumstance as human beings. We are the sons and daughters of God, and we are called to participate in the freedom of the Father. Years of terror and death displaced the great majority of Guatemala's citizens, reducing them to fear and to silence. Truth is the most important word, the most serious and mature action to be undertaken, making it possible for us to break that former cycle of violence and death and to open ourselves to a future of hope and light for all. The work carried out by the Remy Project has been an astonishing endeavor, full of knowledge, depth, and the appropriation of our personal and collective history. It has represented an open door for the people to breathe and speak freely in the creation of communities of hope. Peace is possible, a peace born out of the truth of each and every one of us. It is a painful truth, as it is crammed with memory of the country's deep and bleeding wounds. It is a personified and liberating truth, allowing every man and woman to find him or herself and come to terms with his or her own history. It is a truth that challenges us all, so that we can accept our individual and collective responsibility, and so that we commit ourselves in such a way that the abominable events taking place in the past can never, ever take place again. This project has committed itself to compiling people's testimonies in the present report and globally supporting the claims of the victims. However, between the expectations raised and our own commitment, we also have the need to retrieve our own memory. Searching for the truth is not a chore that simply ends here. We have to return to our origins, to our communities, and support the role of memory as an instrument of social reconstruction by creating materials, ceremonies, monuments. So these were his words, and I think these words speak to what we're here to do today and the rest of the week. We're really speaking the truth. There might be few of us, but we're here and we do this with great honor, and again, it's just an honor to be here, so thank you. And Monseñor Gerardi, presente. Gracias, Maria.
Okay. Our final speaker is Kevin Karen of the Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition Drone Task Force.
Thank you. I was asked about a year ago to do a little bit of research on what the schools in Georgia, here in Georgia, are doing to benefit the U.S. drone program. I discovered that the U.S. government was pumping money into schools not for students' education, not to help the housing situation that students struggle with when they're trying to get educated and make a better life for themselves. They're pumping money into research to be used for war. I think a lot of critics out there have said, you know, drones aren't a bad thing. Drones have so many wonderful capabilities. You can use drones to deliver medication to regions that are very difficult to travel to, where people can't receive medication. Well, that's not what we're delivering to those regions. In northern Pakistan, in the area known as Waziristan, we deliver Hellfire missiles. Just this past week, while we were celebrating Easter here in the United States, many were gathering with their families, if they belong to a religion that celebrates that holiday. They were getting together and celebrating based on their beliefs. You couldn't do that in Yemen this weekend because there was a barrage of strikes, Hellfire missiles raining down on communities there, and in the largest attack on Yemen since 2012. I came here because I think that we want to speak not only to the administrators and the people running this program, but I want the people to hear us. The U.S. government has just announced that they're decreasing the size of the U.S. military. They're making cuts all over the place. What are those cuts to? They're cuts to benefits of our soldiers, our veterans. They're cutting the commissary, which was $1.3 billion. They're cutting it by $1 billion. That's food for soldiers' families. They're cutting health care benefits. They're cutting their retirement benefits. And all these cuts, you see in the newspaper, there's always something at the bottom, that there's two things that they're increasing. They're increasing funding for schools like this. They're increasing funding for special operation forces that will train foreign militias to do what people who are representatives of corporations want them to do. They're training people in other countries so that they can be our ally when Coca-Cola or Northrop Grumman or whatever company decides they have an interest in the region invests and needs their land protected. And that's what's happened here. And that's increasing. And the other thing that's increasing is drones. The U.S. government has decided they don't need their soldiers anymore because they can simply create a robot that will do everything for them. In fact, here at Georgia Tech, there's a researcher working on eliminating soldiers altogether. People are no longer going to be involved in the decision to fire. It will be the robot running a program that a couple politicians said met certain laws that they interpreted the way they wanted to. So while we watch the spending on education, the spending on minimum wage, the spending on healthcare here in the United States drop and the American worker put out on the streets, what do we see increasing? We see increased spending on wars on populations abroad that we don't have any problem with personally. And I actually had the opportunity to go to Colombia just a month ago. I got to stand in the spot where an assassin trained here at this school murdered 8 leaders of what is known as the Peace Community of Apartado, Colombia. And it made me ill to know that this is in my state. This is just a couple miles down the highway from where I live. And the guy working on the technology to eliminate humans and make that possible just by robots, the guy who's going to basically make a robot that can just kill people because a program decides to, he His office is a couple miles from my house. Therefore, I'm here to say that this is unacceptable. We as Americans, we don't want to see this happening. Many soldiers are starting to speak out and say they don't want to see it happening. Many of them use the yardstick to measure whether they will fight in a battle, as whether they are willing to risk their own lives. And they know that the drone does not do that. The drone takes that out of the equation. It means all we lose are a couple dollars and a scrap of metal. And to do what? To take human lives. So I hope that when we begin this walk, I hope that when we go on this walk, that people will say, they will listen. And maybe we won't agree on everything, but I think we can at least start with the idea that if we want peace, then ramping up militarization and investing in programs that create weapons is not the way to do it. Thanks.
Woo, Kevin! Yeah!
Okay, I believe that's our last speaker. We are about to do our walk. It is not too late to join us for the walk. You can go to Georgia Peace and Justice Coalition's website at Georgia Peace, and that's Georgia spelled out, .org. And if you go to, you'll find the link for the walk page. Go to the page, and it has basically the itinerary for day by day. So if you want to meet us up and join us for the walk, you are more than welcome, and we would love to have you. Thank you very much.
May 3rd.
Oh, you can also join us for our May 3rd rally. That is at Georgia Tech at 2 p.m. More details are also listed on georgiapeace.org. And please stay tuned for updates. We'll be taking pictures, tweeting them, Instagramming them, and Facebooking them. So, bye-bye, and let's get walking.
All right.